The rain had been falling softly since morning, a steady patter against the leaves and rooftops of the little forest village. The clouds above were thick and gray, but not frightening. They were heavy with calm, their drops falling in a rhythm that sounded almost like a lullaby. Inside a cozy wooden cottage at the edge of the forest, a young tiger named Tony sat by the window, his paws tucked under his chin as he watched the raindrops race each other down the glass. Tony was not a fierce tiger like the ones told in old stories. He was gentle, with soft golden fur striped in chocolate brown, and round amber eyes that always seemed full of wonder. He loved rainy days, especially when the air smelled like wet earth and fresh pine, and the world outside looked washed in silver light. Still, the steady hum of rain made his eyelids droop, and his tail curled lazily around him as he gave a long, quiet yawn. The cottage was warm, filled with the soft crackle of a fire in the little hearth. His favorite blanket, patterned with tiny stars, was wrapped around his shoulders. Beside him, a steaming cup of honey tea sat on the table, the sweet scent filling the air. The sound of the rain mixed with the crackle of the fire, creating the gentlest song Tony could imagine. He rested his head on his paw and whispered, "It's the kind of day for naps and dreams." Outside the window, droplets gathered on the branches of the tall oak tree, shimmering like tiny crystals. A pair of sparrows huddled under the eaves, their feathers puffed against the drizzle, chirping softly as though telling each other sleepy stories. Even the forest seemed quieter than usual, no rustling, no rushing, just the slow and steady breathing of rain falling over everything. Tony sighed happily, his whiskers twitching. He pulled his blanket tighter and leaned against the window seat, the cool glass against his fur making him shiver in a pleasant way. He wasn't quite ready to nap yet, though. Something about the rain made him curious, like it was calling him into a calm adventure. He glanced at his rain boots waiting by the door, their shiny red tops catching the firelight. "Maybe," he murmured softly, "today isn't only for naps. Maybe there's something special outside waiting in the rain." The rain tapped lightly at the window as if answering him, its rhythm steady and kind. Tony's eyes blinked slowly, caught between cozy sleepiness and gentle curiosity. He knew he would have to decide soon, stay wrapped in warmth or follow the soft song of the rain. And as another drop slid slowly down the glass, glowing in the firelight like a tiny star, Tony felt that maybe this rainy day had a dream all of its own waiting for him to find. Tony slid off the window seat, his blanket slipping softly onto the floor. The fire crackled behind him as he padded over to the door where his bright red rain boots waited. They were a little big for his paws, but that made him like them even more. The way they squeaked when he walked and splashed when he stomped in puddles always made him smile. He tugged them on carefully, one paw, then the other, then pulled the straps tight. The raincoat hanging on the peg was his favorite one, soft yellow with tiny buttons shaped like suns. He wriggled into it, the hood flopping over his ears before he tucked them neatly underneath. Tony looked down at himself, boots shiny, coat glowing warm against the gray of the day, and he gave a quiet nod. "Ready," he whispered. And though speaking to the rain itself, he pushed the door open, and the world outside welcomed him with a soft rush of sound. The rain fell steadily, but gently, the drops tapping against the leaves, the ground, but his hood in a soothing rhythm. The air smelled fresh and clean, like pine needles, wet soil, and something sweet hiding under the surface. Tony stepped out onto the path, his boots sinking slightly into the damp earth with a satisfying squish. He padded forward, and almost immediately found a puddle waiting. With a shy grin, he lifted one paw and stomped. Splash! Water rippled outward, cool droplets flying into the air before falling back down again. The sound made him giggle softly to himself, the rain answering with its steady patter. The forest around him seemed different in the rain, softer, calmer, like it was asleep but still dreaming. Drops clung to every leaf, turning them into tiny lanterns. The grass bent under the weight of water, bowing gracefully as Tony walked past. He tilted his head back and opened his mouth, catching a raindrop on his tongue. It was cool and clear, tasting like the sky itself. As he wandered, Tony noticed friends taking shelter from the drizzle. A family of rabbits peeked from under a tree root, their ears twitching as they watched him pass. A hedgehog huddled under a mushroom cap, its little nose sniffing the damp air. Tony waved to each of them, his gentle smile making them blink back at him calmly, as though reassured by his quiet presence. Soon, he reached the little brook that wound through the forest. Usually, it trickled softly, but today the rain had given it new energy. The water rushed a little faster, bubbling happily over smooth stones. The surface shimmered as raindrops danced upon it, sending circles outward like ripples of silver. Tony sat on a mossy rock nearby, watching the brook sparkle. The sound of it joined the song of the rain, weaving together into something that felt almost like music. His eyelids drooped for a moment, his body swaying gently as though rocked by the tune. He sighed happily. "It's like the forest is humming a lullaby," he whispered. Then, just across the brook, he spotted something curious, a faint glow, soft and golden, nestled beneath a cluster of ferns. It shimmered even in the rain, steady and inviting, as though waiting for him to notice. Tony's heart gave a small flutter, not of fear, but of gentle wonder. He stood slowly, his boots squelching in the mud, his ears perked beneath his hood. The rain seemed to quiet just a little, as though encouraging him to look closer. The little tiger's tail curled with curiosity. "What could it be?" he murmured. The glow shimmered again, brighter this time, calling softly through the curtain of rain. Tony's paws squelched softly in the damp earth as he padded closer to the brook, his raincoat hood slipping back just enough for his ears to twitch in the drizzle. The golden glow beyond the water pulsed again, steady and warm, like a lantern hidden deep in the forest. Tony's amber eyes widened, his tail flicking with curiosity. He leaned forward on the mossy rock, the rain dripping from his whiskers, and whispered, "It looks like the forest left a light on for me." The brook bubbled and splashed, its ripples racing quickly with the rain, and just ahead, a log stretched across the water like a natural bridge. It was slick with raindrops, moss hugging its sides, but it looked steady enough for small paws. Tony pressed one boot onto it carefully, then another, his arms spread wide as he balanced. Raindrops tapped his hood, the sound steady and calm, keeping him focused. Step by step, he crossed the brook until he hopped gently down onto the other side. The glow was waiting, nestled between the ferns. It flickered like the soft flame of a candle, yet it wasn't fire, it was something else. Tony crouched low, brushing the wet leaves aside, and gasped softly. There, hidden in the grass, was a lantern, not the kind made of glass and metal, but one formed of raindrops themselves. Tiny beads of water hovered in the air, each one glowing faintly golden, joined together in the shape of a lantern that pulsed with its own gentle light. Tony tilted his head, his whiskers twitching. A rain lantern," he murmured in awe. The lantern seemed to shimmer in answer, its glow reflecting in his wide eyes. A soft hum rose from it, so faint that it blended almost perfectly with the patter of rain. The sound wasn't words, but it felt like a welcome, like the lantern was pleased he had found it. Tony reached out a paw, and the lantern floated upward, hovering at his eye level. Raindrops swirled lazily inside it, glowing brighter as if recognizing his touch. The warmth of it spread into his chest, even though the air was cool and damp. He sighed happily, his tail curling in. "You're alive, aren't you?" he whispered softly. The lantern bobbed once, slowly, as though nodding. Then it drifted gently away from the ferns, its glow spilling across the forest floor. It hovered a few feet ahead, pausing just long enough for Tony to follow. His boots splashed softly as he stepped after it, his heart warm with wonder. The lantern moved slowly, never rushing, weaving through the dripping trees as though showing him a secret path. The rain fell steadily, but under the lantern's glow, it seemed softer, gentler, like silver threads instead of cold drops. As Tony followed, he noticed little things he hadn't seen before. Mushrooms glowed faintly under tree roots, their caps glistening like pearls. Snails slid lazily across wet leaves, their trails sparkling faintly in the lantern's light. Even the puddles at his feet rippled with golden reflections each time he splashed through them. The lantern drifted into a small clearing, and Tony stopped at its edge. The ground here was covered in moss, soft and springy, and in the center stood a hollow stump, wide and round, like a table waiting for guests. The lantern hovered above it, glowing brighter, as though inviting Tony closer. He padded into the clearing, his rain boots sinking slightly into the moss, and placed his paws on the edge of the stump. The lantern lowered itself gently into the hollow, where it glowed even more brightly, filling the clearing with warmth. The rain still fell, but the light made it shimmer like falling jewels. Tony's heart swelled with calm, his voice barely a whisper. "It's like the forest made a little room just for dreams." The lantern pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat. The sleepy little tiger yawned without meaning to, his body swaying slightly in the soft glow. the rain's rhythm, the hum of the lantern, and the warmth in his chest all blended into a lullaby. Tony curled into the moss beside the stump, his paws tucked beneath his chin. The lantern glowed above him, steady and patient, as though promising to keep watch. His eyes blinked slowly, heavy with comfort. But a thought lingered gently in his mind. Maybe this lantern has something more to show me. And as the rain fell softly around him, Tony closed his eyes just enough to listen. Tony curled deeper into the moss, his starry blanket of raincoat snug around him, while the golden lantern hovered steadily above the stump. Its glow was gentle, like a candle placed at the bedside of the forest, and it hummed a low, soothing note that seemed to sink into his fur. The rain pattered against the leaves, a rhythm so soft it made his whiskers twitch with sleepiness. As Tony's eyes fluttered closed, he noticed something magical. The lantern's glow spread across his eyelids, wrapping him in golden warmth. Then, all at once, the sound of the rain faded into something new. It wasn't gone, it had changed. The steady drops turned into notes of music, each one a soft chime, blending together into a lullaby. When Tony opened his eyes again, he was no longer lying in the clearing. He was standing inside a world made entirely of light and water. The ground shimmered like rippling puddles, but his paws didn't sink, they glided gently over the surface. Raindrops hung in the air like pearls, suspended mid-fall, each one glowing faintly. And far above, the clouds drifted in slow circles, not gray now but painted in soft pastel colors, lavender, silver, pale gold, like the inside of a dream. Tony's mouth parted in awe. "Am I inside the lantern?" he whispered. A cluster of raindrops floated toward him, forming into shapes as they joined together. In just a moment, they became a little bird made of water, glowing faintly with the lantern's light. It tilted its head, chirped a single musical note, and then fluttered its wings. Tiny droplets sprayed outward, forming patterns in the air like stars. Tony giggled softly, reaching out his paw. The bird landed gently on it, its body cool but not wet, like holding a piece of cloud. The glow from its chest pulsed in time with the lantern's hum. "Are you here to show me something?" Tony asked. The bird chirped again, then lifted from his paw, fluttering ahead. Raindrops swirled into its path, forming a glowing trail. Tony followed, his boots making no sound on the shimmering ground. Everywhere he looked, rain was transformed, puddles bloomed into glowing flowers, droplets rearranged themselves into shapes of animals, and streams of water arched like bridges of glass. The bird led him to the center of this glowing world, where a pool larger than the rest rippled softly. Above it floated an enormous raindrop, glowing brighter than the lantern had outside. Inside its liquid walls swirled images: a tiger curled by the fire, sparrows resting under eaves, rabbits safe in burrows, hedgehogs beneath mushrooms. The rain wasn't just falling, it was remembering. Tony's eyes softened. "It's everyone's rainy dreams," he whispered. The bird chirped in agreement, dipping into the pool. As it touched the glowing surface, the images shifted again. And Tony saw himself, curled under his blanket at home, sipping honey tea, watching raindrops race down the window. The picture filled him with warmth. His chest swelled with comfort as the bird fluttered back to him, circling his head once before perching on his shoulder. The lantern's hum deepened, and the glowing raindrop above the pool pulsed brighter. And though thanking him for coming, Tony blinked slowly, his body heavy with calm. "The rain isn't lonely at all," he murmured. "It carries dreams for everyone, and tonight, it carried me here." The glowing world shimmered brighter for a moment, then slowly began to blur, the colors melting like watercolor in the rain. The bird chirped a final soft note before dissolving back into droplets of light. And when Tony's eyes closed again, he felt himself being lifted gently, carried back toward the real clearing where the rain still fell. The patter of raindrops slowly returned, soft and steady, like fingers drumming on a lullaby drum. Tony blinked his eyes open, the glowing dream world fading into the gentle gray of the forest. He was back in the mossy clearing, his cheek resting against his folded paws, his red boots damp but warm, his little yellow raincoat draped snugly around him. Above the hollow stump, the lantern still hovered, its golden glow calmer now, as if it too had just awakened from a dream. Tony yawned, stretching his striped paws until his claws peeked out. then curled them back again. His whiskers twitched, and he blinked slowly at the lantern. "I saw inside you," he whispered softly, "a place where rain carries dreams for everyone. Thank you for letting me in." The lantern pulsed once, twice, a soft golden heartbeat, and Tony felt warmth spread through his chest again. He wasn't cold, not even with the rain falling gently on his hood. Instead, he felt safe, cozy. As though the forest itself had tucked him in. The clearing seemed different now. The moss glowed faintly beneath him, like a hidden blanket of light. The ferns swayed gently with the rhythm of the rain. Even the puddles at his feet shimmered softly, reflecting not just the lantern, but Tony himself, curled and calm, looking a little sleepier than before. A sparrow fluttered into the clearing, shaking the raindrops from its feathers. It perched on a low branch, tilting its head curiously at Tony. Then let out a tiny chirp. From beneath a broad mushroom, the little hedgehog peeked out, sniffing the damp air before scurrying closer to watch. The forest creatures had come to see the glow too, their tiny eyes reflecting the lantern's light. Tony's heart swelled. He wasn't alone. The rainy day had gathered everyone under its gentle blanket. He smiled at them sleepily, his voice soft. "It's a rainy day for dreams, for all of us." The lantern drifted lower, hovering just above his paws. It spun once in a slow circle, scattering faint golden droplets into the air. The droplets hung for a moment, like tiny stars, before falling into the moss and vanishing with a soft hum. Tony's eyelids grew heavy again, the glow making him drowsier, calmer. As though the lantern was promising to keep watch while he rested, he curled onto his side, his red boots tucked together, his tail wrapped neatly around his belly. The moss cradled him like a pillow, and the lantern's hum rocked him gently, in time with the rain's steady patter. "I'll just close my eyes again," he murmured with a soft yawn. "Just for a little while." The lantern glowed brighter for a moment, like a nod of agreement, and dimmed to a steady, soothing light. The sparrow nestled under its wing, the hedgehog tucked closer to the mushroom, and the rain continued its lullaby over the forest. Tony's breathing slowed, deep and calm, his little body sinking into the moss as sleep tugged gently at him again. He had found something magical in the rain. But more than that, he had found peace. Tony's breaths grew slow and even, his tiny chest rising and falling under the soft yellow raincoat. The glow of the lantern above him steadied into a warm, golden light, wrapping the clearing in comfort. The rain continued its quiet song, each drop a note in a lullaby that blended with the crackle of distant thunder, low and gentle, like a drum rolling far away. The moss beneath him was so soft it felt like a pillow made by the forest itself, and the air was cool but kind, filled with the fresh scent of pine and earth. His red boots rested neatly together, little droplets sliding off their shiny tips. His tail curled around his body, and his whiskers twitched faintly as his dreams began to open like blossoms. In his dream, Tony walked once more along paths of shimmering rain. The glowing raindrop bird returned, circling above him, scattering droplets of light that turned into tiny stars. Puddles widened into lakes of silver, and clouds bent low to greet him with soft, cottony edges. The whole rainy world felt like a blanket stretched just for him, keeping him safe and cradled. Back in the clearing, the sparrow tucked its head under its wing on the branch, the hedgehog nestled close to the mushroom, and even the ferns bent inward, forming a canopy to shelter the little tiger as he slept. The lantern's hum deepened, almost like it was humming to him alone. "Rest now, little one, your dreams are here." Time slowed. The rain pattered, steady and unchanging, like the heartbeat of dreamland. The forest around Tony grew quieter still, every creature joining in the calm. His dreams carried him gently across meadows, through soft clouds, and into the heart of the rainy glow. He dreamed of sharing his tea by the fire, of sitting with friends beneath the same roof of rain, of knowing that even on gray, rainy days, there were treasures waiting, treasures of peace, coziness, and gentle magic. The lantern hovered lower, brushing Tony's fur with a faint warmth before drifting slowly upward, returning to its place above the hollow stump. Its light dimmed until it glowed just enough to keep watch, guarding his dreams as the rain wrapped the world in silver. And so the rainy day, which began with quiet curiosity, ended with the deepest calm. Tony, the little tiger, safe in the heart of the forest, slept soundly under the watch of the lantern, the rain, and the stars. And as the story closes, the night whispers to Tony. And to every child listening, you are safe, you are warm, you are loved, and you are ready for the sweetest dreams tonight. The rain sang on. The lantern